What's up, everyone? So today we're answering Mohammed Al Mosaway's, sorry if I mispronounced your name, question, who says, other than OpSec, what else was essential to learn during your 6-month research period? 10 years plus prior to me even taking that 6 months, I had studied cybersecurity, information security, and information technology. Prior to that, I had a, natural affinity for security, or, like circumventing security is probably, a better way to put it. I loved lockpicking. I still do. I like to bypass security measures, or, manipulate things and re-engineer things and make them do, things that they're not supposed to do. Like if you ever seen like the kind of like the life hacks they have on like, TikTok or whatever. Like I love those. I might never use a million of them, but like I love that kind of innovative, interesting things that you can do and, repurpose things and re-engineer them. I love that kind of stuff. So if it wasn't for studying, cybersecurity, IT security, and making that a decade-long study, the answer to your question, it would have been like a lot. Like if I wasn't just solely studying OpSec, like it would have been studying IT and security and cameras and, all the kind of different things that go into it. So besides OpSec, like the, like I had mentioned before, the United States Postal Inspector's Manual, I guess that is kind of OpSec, but I also looked into like the USSG, the sentences for other darknet vendors, and, it was one of those, like, it was a very premeditated thing. Like I looked at the laws, I looked at, what people got. I think that's pretty much it. Like, I mean, because everything else, even the shipping stuff, was technically, OpSec related. So I'd have to say, there really wasn't much else. Like the mentality that you have going into stuff like that, there's no, you can't, it's not something people like, oh, like, were you nervous? Like, no, like you don't, it's not something that you think about every day. You don't get up and like, oh, well, will today be the day? And, you're like biting your nails and like, it's not, you just accept it, and you say, okay, like this is what I'm doing, and you go for it and you do it. And because if you're worried about all those kind of peripheral things, you're not focused in on the task at hand. And that's like, if you're at work and you're thinking about your dog constantly, you're going to do a crap job at work, at your job, because you're so preoccupied with something else. And so again, way off topic. So yeah, it was mostly very focused, and detail oriented, the only other thing really that I would look at, is like differences in maybe patterns of Wi-Fi antennas, going from like highly directional, semi-directional, and omnidirectional. Like I used the highly directional, which is the Yagi, which is like a sniper rifle, and the semi-directional is like a shotgun, where it spreads out. And the omnidirectional is just like all around you, 360 degree sphere, basically. So like, learning a little bit about that, learning about how to do things like in Cali. So when you have a Wi-Fi antenna, right, like it has a certain range, it has a certain power that it operates on. And for those of you who are like familiar with computers, you'll know like, your CPU, you can overclock it. Like, so for those of you who aren't familiar with computers, like you can make it go faster than it's intended to go. You can kind of do the same thing, from my understanding, with what's called TX power, on external or on, Wi-Fi antennas that allow you to edit that. So like in Linux, you can change the TX power. So from my understanding, and again, like I'm not a, expert in any of this stuff, but like from my understanding, basically what that meant was I can increase the power that this Wi-Fi antenna gets and therefore increase its range. Also, from my understanding, in a lot of parts of the country, that's not legal. Because like, with the FCC and stuff. So, definitely check your state and federal laws to see if you can do that locally before you try to do it. I don't know if it's possible on Windows. I know it's possible on Linux, on Kali. So that was like stuff like that, kind of like, which wasn't directly related to OpSec. It was kind of like an offshoot, studying anything that kind of involved my main subject. Like I looked up all the things that kind of branched out from that, you know, like obviously I need internet connectivity. So like a branch from that was like, you know, the Wi-Fi antennas. What kinds are there? You know, which ones are the best for what, you know? So all those kind of like little offshoots were things that I investigated that really weren't directly related to OpSec, but I guess, you know, in a way they kind of were. I don't know. I know it's really conflicting and it's like, you know, you don't even know, but yeah, I guess a lot of those things in a way they were related directly to OpSec, but like they, like my thought patterns about them, you know, I wasn't thinking about security. I was trying to learn about a certain technology that would aid me, you know, in doing my, you know, accomplishing my task. So I hope that answered your question. And at the end of the day, like if you guys enjoyed this content, stick around because the end screen will show you what YouTube thinks you should watch next.